morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am the Takonome, and welcome to my humble slices of the internet that is the reading stream. Or shall I say, welcome to the reading stream. I'm still getting used to the new intro. As again, I am the Takonome. How is everyone doing today? I hope that you're having a good day today, a good weekend, and if that is not the case for you, well, maybe this reading stream could be a bit of a bright spot to your day. I'm also still getting used to this new schedule, starting on doing the reading stream on Sundays as opposed to Saturdays. But tonight, we will continue reading Clockwork Twist, Book 10, Time by Emily Thompson. Now, for anyone who may be thinking to yourselves, well, I don't know who this author is. Who is Emily Thompson? Allow me the opportunity to read their profile bio. Emily Thompson is a non-binary author and artist originally from Northern California. Although they adore steampunk and all things Victoriana, they also write science fiction and fantasy. After studying film and animation in university, Emily changed to a Japanese language focus and studied in Tokyo. After receiving a language degree and spending a number of years abroad, they now live in Washington and spend most of their free time writing in coffee shops, painting, crocheting plushies, coding, and playing lots of cozy video games. So that is the author of not only this book, but the entire series of 12 books. Before we begin the reading stream, normally we'll do news for the channel, and I do have some things to say as far as updates, scheduling, or vision otherwise. So, I don't know if it is coming across, but my throat is a little sore. So tonight's stream may be a little short so that I do not stress out my voice box too much. I do believe we'll be okay. I am concerned about doing Mira's voice, surprise, because that is the hardest voice for me to do, but we will still do our best nevertheless. But, a lot of buts there. However, yet, nevertheless, no, not nevertheless this time. However, I believe it may be in my best interest to not draw out the reading stream too long, so we will certainly get an hour in. Other news for scheduling wise, I did not realize, well, before I say this, to everyone, happy Pride, and there's a reason why I say happy Pride. Because the last Saturday of this month is Pride Day in my city. So I will be attending that, and I intend to have the reading stream that day. However, Pride Day also coincided with Community Stardew Day with the Discord group. And I realized I could not do Pride Day and Stardew Day at the same time because they will overlap. And well, I do not think that we will be ready to do Stardew shortly after. I'm pretty sure the timings will overlap. So I moved Stardew to the Sunday before that. So June 22nd, we will have Stardew Community Day. Now, with that said, June 22nd, the day we'll do Stardew Day, is also the day that I have writing group. So I will do writing group in the morning, then Stardew Day in the afternoon, and then I realized we have the reading stream that day as well. So there are three big events that will take hours. Each event is at least 3 to 4 hours. Well, besides the reading stream. The reading stream is usually an hour and a half. But I realized I would not survive that weekend specifically if I go to a concert on Friday celebrate a friend's birthday on Saturday, and then have a writing group Stardew Day reading stream Sunday, and celebrate yet another friend's birthday the following Monday. It was a lot on my plate, so unfortunately, June 22nd, 2 Sundays from now, we will not have the reading stream. So I want to apologize in advance for this cancellation, but I also treasure my sanity. So I do hope that you understand, and we will still have reading stream next Sunday and Sunday the 29th. I believe that is all of the news we have for this channel. Oh, I forgot to do something. Let's do this now. There we go. I forgot to post that, but now it is posted. Okay. And no, I do not need that. Oh, well, it's not so much of an update, but for those who may not know, I also write stories and I have published a book before. I'm working on getting a second book published. And I'm happy to say that I am in the process of passing off my second book to the final stages, so I can now start focusing on book 3. I'm pretty happy about this. But I wanted to share that news before we got deeper into the reading stream. Now, before we begin Clockwork Twist, Book 10, Time, I want to try something a little different here. I mentioned before that I believe it would be good to have a recap of the story as well as what we got to experience last time. Now, I will apologize because this recap of mine here is, well, I created it and I think I could have spent more time on it. However, I think it will get the story across in a very short amount of time. So allow me the opportunity to read you the recap before we go into tonight's reading. For most of his life, Twist was alone. His sight, his special ability, allowed him to see how something is broken when he makes physical contact with it. This included dramatic experiences of other people. He had resigned himself to solitude in his little London clock shop. His world changed when a young woman entered his shop and enlisted his help to mend the mythical Clockwork Princess. Since then, he had traveled around the world and encountered all manners of strange and mythical beings with a dashing pirate and the Clockwork Princess by his side. It is not all fun and games. There are powerful forces searching for him and his pirate friend. Many attempts have been made on their lives. Nevertheless, they have persevered, and Twist's bond with his companions only grows stronger. When we last left Twist and his friends, they arrived in London and attended a fancy dinner party hosted by Alistair, a well to do English gentleman Twist met aboard a flying cruise ship over the Arctic. After regaling the guests with stories of their adventures, Twist and his companions headed back into the dark London streets, but Twist recognized his old stomping grounds and wished to explore. And with that, let's get into our first chapter. We are on page 32. Let's begin. The streets were fairly quiet, with only a few people strolling through the gloom as the early morning deepened. Nonetheless, Twist walked on through his childhood world with buzzing excitement, mixed with an eerie sense of distance after many years away. Every shop and sign looked untouched by time, mirroring his memory perfectly, but at the same time, everything seemed less grand or imposing than it once had. As he was pointing out shop windows that he and the other orphan boys used to peer into with wonder on those rare days when the home staff would take them out on an outing, He realized that he was chattering on quite a bit. Mira and Jonas made no complaint, though Twist found it hard to slow his words as these ancient memories flooded his mind, and he remembered the day the headmaster had bought a whole box full of treats, at that bakery over there, as a surprise for the boys. At the time, those simple little cakes had seemed like the finest treasures in the world, and Twist could still remember the taste. This bookshop right here was where Twist had bought his first book on watch repair, with the pennies he earned mending the clocks and watches at the school out of pure intuition. What a triumph that had seemed to him at the time. And here was the flower shop owned by the forever angry, stooping old woman who the boys always thought was a witch in hiding, its windows now black and devoid of flowers at this very early hour. But Twist didn't need light to see by. His memory filled every shop with the soft daylight of the cloudy London skies in his childhood. And there, right where he left it, stood the old orphanage itself. The large, once great home filled nearly the entire block with its hulking brick form, the wide, flat face now blackened by soot and endless city rain. The numerous little windows set into the three-story high wings to either side of the square entry hall were all dark tonight. Only the gaslight under the covered porch offered any light in the gloomy little patch of well-worn grass before the house. Twist looked through the high iron bars of the fence that surrounded the entire estate like the walls of a fortress, suddenly realizing he had not done so even once since the day he left this place. He spent every day of his childhood behind this fence, save for a few scant outings into the very near streets, but once he left through the gate, he never stepped through it again. Even now, fueled by nostalgia as he was, the fence seemed impenetrable, as if the world inside it was no longer open to him. Looking back now, he realized with a cold chill that he so far recalled only pleasant memories of his childhood out here on the streets. There were precious few moments of any joy inside this fence. And right there, under that single light, was the very spot where his father had abandoned him without a name. Twist's eyes moved away as if they'd been stung by the thought. Even now, despite knowing all his grandmother had told him about the reasons he'd been left behind, despite knowing that he'd been carefully placed in the protective arms of anonymity and given a powerful charm as a guard against those who wanted his death, his heart sank into the frigid depths of that nearly forgotten pain.
Darling?
Mira asked him gently, stirring Twist from his thoughts. Suddenly, the entire universe lightened, from pitch black into splendor, as he looked to her. Mira peered at him with concern, her copper face and sparkling azure eyes breathtakingly beautiful to him even in this gloom. A smile twitched onto Twist's face as he realized that he had abruptly fallen silently, that he'd fallen completely silent after chattering on like a schoolgirl for nearly an hour. I'm sorry, dear, he said to Mira, patting at her hand that still held his arm. Do you want a hug? Jonas asked, standing on the other side. His tone was cautious, but light enough for Twist to dismiss if he chose. Of course, Jonas had felt the sudden and drastic change in Twist's spirit through the buzzing connection through their sights, and knew Twist well enough to understand exactly what had happened to him. Suddenly acutely aware of the fact that Jonas always had this deeply intimate view of his own private mind, Twist could only marvel at how little it bothered him. Twist saw the deep purple color in his friend's eyes and took his hand. The familiar, soothing, cool white fog billowed into his sight at the touch, washing all of his darker thoughts away to the back of his mind. I'm fine, he said, already feeling stable again. Jonas smirked, his eyes turning green. Fine, huh? Twist kept his friend's hand and glanced back to his beautiful bride. Yes, just fine. Mira smiled back to him warmly, her concern lifting. Are you getting tired? She asked, as if only curious. No, Twist answered, somewhat surprised to find it true. He knew he should be tired, considering the fact that the sun would be rising soon, but all of the excitement of the night still buzzed about in his blood, making rest sound like an awful idea. Are you, dear? He asked her. Not really, she said, shaking her head. I was honestly just hoping for an excuse to draw you away from here. It seemed to make you sad. Twist laughed in surprise at her plain spoken comment. Well, you were having a lovely time before, continued quickly, as if to cover a mistake. The moment you saw this place, you seemed to get depressed. Well, it's depressing, Twist said with a sigh, smiling at her. All of the good memories of my life happen outside of this fence. Nothing good ever happened in there. What time is it, Twist? Oh, apologies, that was correct. What time is it, Twist? Jonas asked. Twist released Jonas's hand and reached into his waistcoat pocket without hesitation, drawing out his watch. He paused, finding he'd drawn it out with the engraved back facing up on his palm. The engraving stared back at him, every line of it filled with the hidden magic that had kept him safe from murderous villains for his entire life. The driving force in that very spell was love, the love of either one or both of his parents. The symbol was undoubtedly drawn by his mother, and the watch itself had been built by his father. They may have left him alone and without a name, but they had left him this powerful charm nonetheless. It was solid, undeniable proof that abandonment had never been their wish. Realizing what his friend's true intention might have been, Twist looked up to Jonas suspiciously. Jonas smiled back at him smugly, his eyes lavender as he watched Twist's spirit ease. Mira's emotion warmed over his sight as she still held his arm, clearly understanding Jonas's intent as well, but saying nothing to impede the mood. Feeling quite well looked after by them both, Twist shook his head and flipped his watch over, touching the latch to open his face. Good heavens, it's already nearly 3 o'clock, he said, startled by the hour. No wonder I'm feeling sober again, Jonas said with a frown. It's been too long since dinner. Who'd like a nightcap? Or would it be a morning cap? Either way, this is London. There's gotta be some bar or cafe open all night around here somewhere. Twist chuckled, putting his watch away. I wouldn't know where to find one. I didn't do much drinking as a child, and I never come back to this neighborhood until tonight. No problem, Jonas said with a shrug. You've a pirate by your side, laddie. I'll sort us out. Twist laughed again, following as Jonas led them away in a random direction. Mira remained at his side, her emotions calm and contented now as they all turned their backs on the dark old house. Twist felt his spirit already as light as a feather, with nothing but a distant memory of darkness lingering in the back of his mind. No matter what his childhood might have been like, his adulthood was moving along swimmingly, with ample adventure and comfort. Sure enough, Jonas managed to find a cafe that not only stayed open all night, but had a decent wine selection as well. Twist found it somehow amusing that the establishment was only 2 blocks away from his orphanage, and yet it had taken them many more blocks and nearly an hour to find it. Thankfully, the lamplighters that Jonas had eventually asked, who were starting the task of snuffing out the street lights, had been in good humor and happy to offer their knowledge. Otherwise, Twist feared they might have ended up in Whitechapel. The gray sky began to glow with a gentle, diffused light as the sun rose, but the drizzle remained ever present, pattering gently in the early morning calm. Twist and his companions took a table under a wide veranda at an establishment that looked rather like a Paris street cafe, complete with French menu items and wines. A charming little iron fence, topped with flower boxes, hemmed the tables under the shelter of the veranda and out of the rain. Gaslights gave the outdoor space a cheery glow that could be easily seen from afar. Twist imagined it must be a novelty to the local Londoners, being able to eat and drink outside by the street at all hours despite the chill and the damp, thanks to the low radiators hidden at the base of the fence. All the same, it seemed a bit silly to him. Finding a Parisian-style cure on the menu, however, Twist forgave the silly little faux French cafe its absurdities. Jonas Jonas ordered one as well, handing the menus back to the waiter and looking out at the drizzle around them mildly. Anything for the lady? The waiter asked, clearly trying to examine Mira's clockwork form without appearing to stare. No, thank you, she replied, smiling back at his swift and repeated glances. As the waiter nodded and left the table, Twist noticed an uneasy buzzing at his neck. He glanced up to find Jonas frowning now, peering out at the street beyond the little fenced space with taut attention, moving his head as if adjusting the angle of his view. Before Twist could speak up as Jonas to ask Jonas what the matter was, Jonas's eyes went suddenly wide, and he reached across the table to snatch Twist's hand. Twist gasped as Jonas's anxiety struck him sharply with the touch, the fog that followed unusually cold and fearful. We're here, Jonas said in a harsh whisper. Here? Twist asked back, his heart pounding now in fright. What's the matter? This is it, Jonas hissed, staring at Twist with silver eyes. My vision. Twist, this is where it's going to happen. What vision? Mira asked urgently. Jonas groped for words. Then his gaze lit on a figure Twist had hardly noticed, rushing in under the shelter in the rushing in under the shelter of the veranda just to Twist's right, and then retreated to Twist with a bright yellow color and the ghost of obvious recognition. Twist turned to look up at the man now standing a few feet away, trying to wave down the waiter. He was tall and late middle age, with a somewhat dark complexion and a head full of graying black curls. He wore the heavy overcoat and sturdy boots and trousers of one who was on a long and arduous journey. Perhaps it was the pointed black mustache, or the curly hair, or the resemblance to a long forgotten painting of some marquis or other, but Twist instantly assumed him to be a Spaniard. All at once, time seemed to stand still as a world-altering thought occurred to Twist. He looked more closely at the Spaniard's face, and his stomach went cold and hollow as a shiver ran up his spine. The shape of the man's nose looked alarmingly familiar, as did the curve of his jaw. He was the proper age as well. Twist looked back to Jonas as the details the vision Jonas had warned him about replayed in his mind. He, Jonas, and Mira would all be sitting at a street cafe somewhere vaguely European, a light drizzle falling around them. Jonas nodded, his eyes wide with dread, taking his hand back from Twist. For a single instant, Twist considered not doing what Jonas's vision had told him he would do. He didn't have to, after all. He was a free man, in full possession of himself and his actions. He could remain sitting quietly. He could run away into the streets. He could do any number of things if he chose. He didn't have to face the man beside him, not now and not ever. But if he did anything other than what the vision prescribed, he might never have this chance. He might never have this chance again. He might never know the truth of his own life, good or bad, really was. And so, in a single moment of pause, resignation swept over him. Twist stood up, turning to the Spaniard. Not having managed to catch the waiter's attention just yet, the man glanced at him with dark eyes and nothing more than the mildest interest. Twist felt the words coming up out of his soul like the waves before a storm, and did his utmost to hold himself calm as he spoke them. Hello, Father. Here we're going to take a chapter break. Lady Robsy, hello and welcome to the stream. How are you doing today? A reading stream on a Sunday night? Egads. And that's Taka, yes. As I've mentioned before, the reading stream has moved from Saturday nights to Sunday nights now. Hi, good. And you? I am a little tired, to be honest. My throat is also a little sore. My voice is a little crackly. I don't know if anyone can notice. Which is why tonight we're going to have a rather short reading stream just to give myself time to Relax is not the word I'm looking for, but to take it a little easier as we wind down this weekend. In Community Day for Saturdays now, we have one Community Day that I host. That will be 2 Sundays from now. And while I'm thinking about it, everyone, thank you for joining this reading stream tonight. Whether you're here live, let's say on Twitch or YouTube, or you're listening to the VOD. I hope that you are enjoying the story so far, as well as the reading of this story. In addition to that, I want to thank you for all of the support that you give this channel, whether it is likes or follows, subscriptions, or just going to tell your friends and families and say, hey, there's a guy on the internet who likes to read books to everybody. Now, yes, he has a nice, soothing, maybe even sultry voice. And yes, he makes mistakes here and there, but it's just so relaxing. So if you happen to tell friends or family that, or even complete strangers, well, I will be happy and I am very appreciative of that as well. Robsy, hope that you sleep well, have a good night rest, and we will do our best to enjoy the rest of the stream. Going to take a sip of tea here. This should be well steeped by now. Ooh, that is a kick. Next time, I should try half strength. But even the aftertaste is still so good. But we will talk about the tea I'm drinking later. With that, we are meeting Twist's father. I'm curious to see how this would go. So with that, let's go into our next chapter. Before we go, I just realized I do not have a voice for this man yet. I do not know how to do a Spanish voice, so bear with me. But on to the next chapter. At first, the Spaniard only frowned in mild confusion. Then his face paled and his eyes widened as if in terror as he stared back at Twist. The notebook he'd been holding fell from his grasp, but he didn't seem to notice. Twist felt a light-headed rush of his own terror, seeing recognition blaze like a beacon in the other man's eyes. Jonas's vision hadn't led him astray. This man knew him after all. The Spaniard's lips parted as heartbreaking sorrow stole the fear from his face. "Eres tu?" he breathed, the sound of his warm, full voice giving Twist a shiver. He looked Twist up and down as if Twist was at once the most astonishing and also the most tragic thing he had ever beheld. He took a step closer and lifted a hand as if he meant to reach for Twist. Out of pure reflex, Twist stepped back. The man froze, startled at first, but then bitter understanding made his entire posture slump, and he drew his hand back into a tight fist as a tear broke free to run down his face. Twist stared back at him, utterly unsure of what to say or do, as the man seemed to lose all his strength. The waiter, who must have arrived at some point, moved swiftly, dropping his menu and catching hold of the Spaniard as he slipped downward as if about to faint. Jonas was out of his seat in an instant, helping the waiter to get the man into a chair at a nearby table. "I'll go get him some water," the waiter said, appearing highly confused by all of this as he turned to rush away. He apparently picked up the man's notebook with the menu and left them both on his table. Sitting now at the table beside Twist, still Still conscious but clearly beside himself, the Spaniard dropped his head into his hands. Twist slipped back into his own seat, facing him, and looked up to Jonas in desperation. Standing beside Twist's father, Jonas looked back at him with a piteous expression. Sorry, that was all I saw. Oh, this is Jonas speaking. Apologies. Sorry, that was all I saw, he muttered. I don't know what happens now. Twist's father seemed to recover just enough of his will to lift his head and look at Twist again, his eyes now reddened with tears and his face nearly as pale as Twist's. I apologize, everyone. I know that was a long pause. I am pausing because I do not know Spanish, and there are two words here that are Spanish, so now I'm thinking of how to actually say these two words. I will put them in chat. Those are the two words I'm seeing right now. So I'm going to practice just a little bit before we move on. Sigues vivo? Sigues vivo? Maybe. It may be Sigues vivo. We're going to go with that. I apologize to anyone who actually knows Spanish and tells me I'm wrong. Twist's father seemed to recover just enough his will to lift his head and look at Twist again, his eyes now reddened with tears and his face nearly as pale as Twist's. Sigues vivo? He asked, barely above a whisper. Despite the fact that Twist failed to grasp the meaning of these words, the depth of emotion behind them was not lost on him. What? Twist muttered awkwardly. He said, You're still alive, Jonas said to Twist softly. Twist's father glanced up to Jonas, and then back at Twist as if now only realizing that Twist didn't speak a word of Spanish. Lost in the horrid mess of his own thoughts, Twist struggled to explain, and then drew his watch out of his waistcoat pocket. At the sight of it, his father gasped. Iwick? He asked, a thick Spanish accent on his English words, but his voice breathless with relief. It kept you safe for 27 years. It kept you safe, he added, his eyes drifting off into clearly painful thoughts. His gaze snapped back to Twist, and Twist feared that the man might start to cry. You're already a man. I'll just leave this, the waiter said, placing a glass of water on the table. He then swiftly moved to place the two kyrs on Twist's table and vanished again. Here, Jonas said to Twist's father, handing him the glass of water. Everything is fine. There's plenty of time. The man looked up to Jonas in mild confusion, but took the glass and a tiny sip. Who are you? He asked, frowning when Jonas repeatedly refused, with small but decisive motions, to meet his gaze. My name is Jonas, he said. I'm Twist's friend. Twist? Twist's father asked, confused, putting his glass back on the table. Him, Jonas said, gesturing to Twist. Everyone calls him Twist. Right, the man said, looking to his son once again. Of course, he added as another flash of pain passed through his eyes. Because I couldn't tell them your name. Do you even know your name? He asked desperately. No. How could you? He added before Twist could respond. But you must think of me. I left you. But you don't understand. You couldn't possibly. In all of his imagination, in all of his imaginings of finally confronting his father, Twist had never expected the man to be racked with misery at the sight of him. He expected smiles at the very least. He even hoped for apathy, which Twist might then dispel with a few well-chosen bitter remarks. For watching his father on the verge of tears and terror once again, no part of Twist wanted to add to the man's obvious pain. He put his collection of bitter remarks aside for now. No, I do understand, Twist said earnestly. At least, I think I do. Mama told me what happened. About the fairies and all of it. Mama? His father asked, startled as he wiped at his face. How did you know Mama? She told me she couldn't protect you, he added with a flash of anger. I just ran into her a few weeks ago, Twist said quickly. I had no idea who she was, but she knew me instantly the moment she saw me. She told me what you and Twist paused, overwhelmed by the strangeness of what he was saying and who he was saying it all to. What you and my mother did to protect me. She told me all about the symbol, he added with a gesture to his watch, and that the fairies are still trying to find a way to kill me. You couldn't leave me with a name, or so I might have said it, bringing either winter or summer right to me. You already do. You already do? Twist's father asked in dazed amazement. He paused suddenly, looking back at Twist with fragile hope. And you understand? I think so, Twist answered, unsure of the true meaning of the man's words. His father's hope vanished into a look of disappointment, which he quickly covered with a stoic blankness. Apparently, Twist had guessed wrong somehow. Well, Twist went on, hoping to patch up the problem. As I said, I only met Mama a few weeks ago. This is all still very new to me. I never even set foot outside of London until late last year. Twist's father nodded and seemed to struggle to put on a calm smile. And you don't even speak Spanish. Then you weren't adopted by a British family? He asked, sadness clear as day behind his mask. Twist looked back at him silently. He'd run this conversation through his head too many times to count. Alone in his thoughts, he told this man, with staid and stoic calm, exactly how far he'd come and how much he accomplished, despite being left alone and nameless on a stoop. He sharpened his sentences to a razor edge and planned out exactly how he would destroy the man who robbed him of his home and heritage. But now that the moment had finally come, his real father had burst into tears before Twist had said anything but hello. Twist wasn't even sure what it was that was upsetting him so badly. Even with his sturdy fortress of spite standing strong around his heart, it just felt wrong to cause the man more pain now. Jonas and Mira were watching Twist soberly, already knowing the answer to his father's question, waiting for Twist to say it. Twist's father began to look anxious again as the silence stretched. Twist gave a sigh and put his weapons away. Something like that, Twist answered finally. I was taken in as an apprentice, and I left the orphanage rather early, compared to some, he added reluctantly. In truth, he left at 16, 5 years before he had been told too old. Hmm, apologies. 5 years before he'd have been told he was too old to stay and thrown out into the streets. His father nodded, taking this information in carefully, as if it were wrapped in thorns. Did they give you an orphanage then? He asked, seeming reassured. I was afraid. I was afraid you end up in a workhouse, but in an orphanage you must have taken care of. Did they give you an education? Twist frowned. I thought you left me at the orphanage. Did you not even know what sort of place it was? It was only after he'd spoken that Twist noticed some of his bitterness had seeped into his voice, turning it sharp. Twist's father flinched against it. I couldn't, he answered quickly. If I knew where you were, the Fae would have found you. They chased me for years, broke into my dreams. He stopped himself, shaking his head. He took a breath, pulling strength out of somewhere. I left you at the church because I knew they would make sure that you were taken care of, but they couldn't keep you for long. I couldn't even talk to anyone there, or I might have dreamed their faces. If I knew anything at all, the Fae would have found out. That's the only reason I gave you away. The bitterness in Twist's soul began to crack. He now noticed the haggard look of his father's features, the graying hair despite his relative youth, and the traveling costume he wore that looked to have seen many journeys. The tears had stopped, but Twist still heard the pain in his voice. Even when Twist had been bullied and alone, he always had food, shelter, and the luxury of not even believing in fairies. But while Twist had been building his arsenal of cruel words for his parents, his father had been fighting for his life against the Fae. He lost his wife to them, he lost his son, and he's still done the best he could for Twist.
Well,
Mira said gently into the silence between them.
you're together now.
Startled yet again, looked at, Twist's father looked to her, his eyes moving over her clockwork form in amazement. He obviously hadn't noticed her before, but he now seemed fascinated. Twist breathed a silent sigh of relief to see that her simple distraction had lightened his father's heart ever so slightly. Who are you? His father asked. This is Mira, Twist answered, while Mira smiled politely. She's, well, she's the Clockwork Princess of legend, he added, amazed at the way it sounded. And we're to be married, just as soon as things calm down enough to let us schedule the wedding. What? The father asked back, bewildered. But the story of the Clockwork Princess is a fairy tale. Did you say you were going to be married? He asked, somehow even more bewildered.
Oh, yes.
Mira replied brightly.
I couldn't possibly be happier with my darling Twist. Your son has grown into a fine man. I'll have you know, he's brave and kind, very handsome, and the best clockmaker alive, I'm sure. You should be very proud of him.
She said, nearly bursting with pride herself. Twist's face warmed with embarrassment at her ridiculous amount of praise, but despite his best efforts, he heard nothing but honest devotion in her voice. Yes, our Twist is a cracking fellow, Jonas added, coming to stand beside his friend now, a smug smile on his face. And believe me, rescuing a fairy tale princess was one of our least fantastic adventures together. Your son and I have battled just about every kind of monster there is. Why, even been to outer space, if you can believe it. Twist felt so awkward under this assessment that he nearly spoke up to correct Jonas, but he couldn't think of anything to say. He looked back to find his father's expression not at all doubtful. Instead, he seemed pleased softly as he looked over Mira and Jonas, and then back to Twist. Well, he said on a sigh, his voice more stable now. You must be a very good man indeed, to earn such love from your friends. His smile widened, and he leaned closer. Are you really a clockmaker? Twist smiled back and nodded, surprised by the blush of pride that rose in his heart. I used to keep a shop on the other side of the city, but then I left my home to go adventuring. I repaired Mira's clockwork puppet when it was badly damaged, and I occasionally mend clocks for kings. His father's amazement and clear approval at this felt remarkably nice to Twist. Before he could go on, Mira added, You also fixed the dragon's astrolabe. Oh, yes, Twist said. That as well. Wait, my astrolabe? His father asked. Your astrolabe? Jonas asked back. Well, I built a giant clockwork astrolabe for a couple of dragons once. Twist's father went on. It was huge, filled the whole room. They wanted to use it to travel the planets. It's is that the word you meant? What was wrong with it? They didn't set it properly, Twist answered, amazed now himself. But you built it. I'd never seen clockwork like that. It was amazing, ingenious. His father looked very pleased with his son's praise. Thank you. I can't believe you actually put doing it. Yeah, well, the Dragon Stars charts weren't as good as Jonas's. Oh, wrong person. Apologies. Yes, well, the Dragon Star charts weren't as good as Jonas's eyes, Twist said offhandedly. It was really no trouble to calibrate it for a planetary drift, but they told me it was the son of the great clockmaker J.R. Losada who made the astrolabe. His father nodded. That's it. Twist stared back at him again, wide-eyed. You're Losada's son? I'm related to Losada. He was your grandfather, he answered with a nod. You know of him? He was a genius, Twist exclaimed.
Until I saw Mirror or your astrolabe, I thought he was the finest clockmaker in the world. I nearly went to Spain once just to see that tower clock he built, and he was my grandfather.
Twist's father smiled at him and nodded again. He and I hardly knew each other. I grew up without him, but he was my father. Well, no wonder you're awesome, Jonas mentioned to Twist. You're not only a sighted freak, but clockwork is literally in your blood.
Damn,
Twist snapped with a frown, looking up to Jonas.
I thought I chose Clockwork, but it seems Clockwork chose me.
Are you complaining? Jonas asked back with a smirk. Twist laughed and shook his head, surprised by how nice it felt to laugh after the tension of the last few minutes.
Oh, how exciting!
Mira said to Twist.
You're practically a celebrity.
Twist chuckled.
I don't know if it's exciting, but I'm still trying to get over being Spanish.
His father seemed instantly alarmed by this, frowning at his son. He always thought he was British, Jonas clarified. Jonas clarified with a nod to Twist. The poor old boy nearly had a fit when Mama told him his parents were continental, he said, as if implying something scandalous.
Jonas,
Twist snapped at him.
you make me sound like an imperialistic toff.
You are an imperialistic toff, Jonas countered.
Oh, stop that, you two.
Mira said, cutting Twist off before he lobbed an insult back.
You're frightening your father.
Twist glanced back to find a look of utter confusion on his father's face. Sorry, Jonas muttered. We were only playing. We do that.
By the way,
Mira said to Twist's father.
What is your name? Mama wouldn't tell it to us.
I'm not sure I should tell you either, he said, suddenly cautious. He patted at his shirt front with a hand where something might hang by the thin chain that Twist could just see at his collar. I wear a charm that hides my voice in images from my entities. Tristan might be able to repeat my name with the charm on his watch to protect him. But the rest of you,
Oh,
Mira says suddenly, looking to Twist.
that was your real name he just said, wasn't it?
His father's eyes snapped shut as if he'd been slapped. He covered his face. He covered his mouth with his hand as if to toe. Apologies. Let's start this sentence over again. His father's eyes snapped shut as if he'd been slapped. He covered his mouth with his hand as if to hold Twist's true name silent inside. Twist nodded in answer to Mira, not that it felt like his real name. Twist had always been a perfectly fine name for him, real or otherwise. Anyway, don't worry about all that, Jonas said to Twist's father, pushing his left sleeve up to his elbow, revealing the tattoo on the inside of his arm. Mira and I both have blood magic on our charms. Mira nodded to him, pulling the charm she wore up from where it hung, hidden under her own collar. We are safe as we can get. A sighted man told us a name that might be Twist's real one once as well. It's safe to say it as long as we're all warded. Oh, Twist's father replied in clear relief. Well, in that case, my name is Miguel Rodriguez, and I suppose it's also safe to tell you that your name, he said, looking to Twist, is Tristan Code Rodriguez. Your mother gave you the French name, I gave you a Spanish one, and Cole is from England, the name where she and I first met, fell in love, and decided to have you. Twist stared back at his father while those once foreign sounds bounced around his head, looking for a place to belong. The first time he heard his name, spoken by a sighted rook who was a stranger to him, Twist had rejected it as too odd and uncomfortable to belong to him. But now, hearing his father not only say it to him but also explain the significance of each part of it, the name suddenly felt real. It was his name, after all. He could feel it in the subtle lilt of his father's voice. Okay. Looking at the time, we are going to come to the end of the reading stream soon. Ooh, but not quite yet. I will admit, my voice, my reading comprehensions today or reading abilities tonight have been a little questionable. But to everyone who is listening, whether you're here live or you're listening to the VOD, I do hope that you are enjoying the story so far, as well as the best reading I can do for the evening. Mira is still the most difficult voice ever to do. My, that is a strong batch right there. Tonight, as far as teas I'm drinking here, I am drinking a tea called Anansi's Web, which I'm starting to think I should get more of. I feel like I'm going to be out soon. However, the ingredients of Anansi's Web, perhaps my favorite tea now: apple, squash, ginger, chicory root, and red chili flake. Now, if you don't know, you may be asking yourself, why Taka? That does sound like a delicious and yet very spicy tea. Where can I find delicious and spicy teas that tickle the senses? Well, dear listener, allow me the opportunity to tell you about our non-sponsored sponsorship that is definitely not a sponsorship because they've never sponsored me before. The tea shop in Seattle, Washington, called Friday Afternoon. That is right, it's time for Friday Afternoon sponsorship. I promise this is not a real sponsorship because they do not sponsor me, but I'm going to pretend it's a sponsorship. If you go to their website, www.fridaytea.com, you will find a wide variety of teas that, well, will tickle your senses. Tonight, I want to tell you about this tea. It is called Impenetrable, which honestly, that's a pretty hardcore name for a tea. But this tea is inspired by Avatar: The Last Airbender. So, the description goes as follows: robust, earthy, and a little dank. This tea is as strong and smooth as Ba Sing Se's finest. 15-year cave-aged pure tea grounds out of a bold cuppa, while a light touch of apple and osmanthus remind one of a bountiful orchard. The ingredients: pure tea, apple, green tea, linden, osmanthus. This tea is available for the summer fandom rotation, which lasts from June 1st until September 3rd. After September 3rd, this tea will not be available in stock. Apologies, I had a burp there. And I see 3 reviews on this page, all 5 stars. The first review from not April 2024, my gosh, from May of 2024, I may be a little tired. But May 2024, 5-star review. I absolutely love this blend. I have recommended it to all my friends and family. Another 5 stars from July of 2023. Well balanced. One of my favorite blends. It got a lot going on, but is also subtle and well balanced. Really tasty and smooth. And from June of 2023. Subtle and balanced. I really enjoy this tea. I feel like you can taste all of the flavor notes, but in a subtle and chill harmony. And there you have it. Impenetrable is the name of the tea, and if you want to check out that tea or any other tea, to be quite honest, check out Friday Afternoon, the tea shop in Seattle, Washington. Again, their website is www.fridaytea.com. Again, that is www.friday, like the day, and tea, like the drink.com. And again, this is not a sponsorship. Yes, I know it feels like a sponsorship, but I promise they do not sponsor the reading stream. I'm not sure if they know I still do the reading stream and talk about their teas. They do not hold my puppy hostage and demand a ransom that I talk about their teas on stream and only say not terrible things, but only good things about them. No, I do actually enjoy their teas. I'm not much of a tea person personally, but I do actually enjoy their teas, especially at Nancy's Web. My goodness. That's beyond the point. What I'm saying is, I took the time myself to talk about the teas because I want to. So again, that is Friday afternoon, the tea shop in Seattle, Washington, and I'm sure if you check out their site, you will find a tea that will tickle your taste buds. I am looking at the time, and I'm also considering my energy and reading levels here. I believe we may actually come to an end here. Before we go, I do want to apologize to everyone that we will be cutting this stream short, but I am not sure I have it in me for another chapter with the way I'm feeling. However, next Sunday, as far as I know of, I don't have any events I need to go to. Next Sunday should be a better day. I should be a bit more rested, and we will have a full reading stream that day. Fingers crossed that nothing comes up. In the meanwhile, I do want to thank you all for joining this reading stream and, well, being patient with me as I did not do my best performance tonight, but we do what we can here. I do hope that you enjoyed the story as well as the reading of this story. And again, all of the support that you give this channel, whether it is likes, follows, lurking, just having it play in the background, listening as you go to work or whatnot, or telling friends and family, subscriptions, or, well, I don't have any donation boxes because I don't really do but donations. Either way, again, thank you all. I do appreciate the support that you give this channel. And with that, I will sign off for the evening. Everyone, have a good week. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time. Until then, take care and bye bye.